Welcome, one and all, to episode number 47. We're just a few away, if I could say the word right, from the big 5-0. This is episode 47 of Endless Conversation Loop. Today is October 17th, 2025. My name is Brandon, and I am here with this show's co-host, who's named...
Sorry. Oh, God. This is Boom. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Long night?
To say the least, yes.
Well, you know, if anything, I think we're gonna get your we're gonna get the blood pumping, because we're going on with a topic today that I know, based on like just little mentions of it in the past, you've been kind of a little more spicy about, a little more angry at it. And it's something that I, like, in doing all this research, like, I found myself going, like, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, from back in April when we first learned about these, to, like, seeing how they're used in practice, to, like, seeing, like, some of the reasons that people use these. But anyway, let's stop beating around the bush on this. Today is the episode that I titled The Keycard Conundrum, because we're talking about this seemingly new medium used on this new 2025 console called the Switch 2 with their game key cards. Before we get into that main topic, is there anything interesting that you've seen lately that you might want to discuss as like a short mini topic before we get going, or do you want to like get straight into that?
More specifically, I was just more excited about some of the recent game releases that's coming out in like the last month or so-ish. I haven't gotten a chance to get everything yet, but I did get the new Final Fantasy Tactics, which I'm hoping to start playing soon. I made the mistake of restarting Hades, which is like my third all-favorite game of all time, because I wanted to get Hades 2 at some point semi-soonish, and I was like, oh, I should play Hades 1, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm addicted again. And then Ghost of Yotei, I think I'm more excited about getting at some point, but I also have to now play through Ghost of Tsushima first before I worry about buying that right now. But honestly, like, and this might be a topic like for later this year, but like this has been such a good year of gaming. Like, oh my God. Like, I can't get over it, like how many good games we've gotten in 2025, and it's like we've still got 2 months basically yet. So I'm curious what that's going to lead to later, like when we get closer to the holiday season.
I think that could be the thrust of when we do our like wrap-up episode,
Yeah.
You know, looking back on 2025, like one of our first, could be, depending on where episode 50 releases, our second episode of the year in 2026.
Probably.
I know we have a shot of getting real close. Like episode 50 is either going to be right before the year ends or like right after the new year starts when we release, just based on how things are going. And I've not meant to have this show be a monthly release. I've meant it to be a bi-weekly release, but just with all the nonsense going on.
We had a very like adventurous like August and September. Like, it's been kind of busy for both of us for very different reasons. Like, it's expected. Like, yeah, it would be nice if we do it bi-weekly, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's more important, you know, we're able to just get it out, I think, at the end of the day. Like, you know, we don't want to disappoint our like 4 listeners that we have.
Right, but our individual sanity also matters.
Oh yeah.
Well, with that then, why don't we just jump headfirst right in? I'm thinking, folks, just like you in the audience, so you're aware, I'm going to pull back the curtain. I've been using that phrase a lot lately in these episodes, but this time I think it's worth it. I think this is going to be our first ever 2-part episode. The reason that I say this is going to be our first 2-part episode, I think, is because I have 29 pages of notes because I'm an absolute madman and I can't leave any stone unturned. I hate that about myself sometimes, but you know, I'd rather have something that's thorough and really tells a complete story than something that is like based on hearsay and conjecture. So in terms of this keycard stuff, the way that I have it kind of split up, first I think it's important we establish what these are, and then we're going to talk about at least these are just the reasons I wrote down as to why I consider them problematic. I'm sure you have some reasons as well that might not be on
Boy, do
this list. And then in terms of when we enter into part 2, what I want to do is I want to highlight the publishers that I think are approaching the issue right. Some of the ones where I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, I don't understand your output here. And some of the ones so far who are like getting this completely wrong. And then on top of that, with those, I also have comments from like devs that I could find along the way that explain some of their reasoning. Because if there's anything that we know, I strive for fairness. I think it's important that we, at least let these folks have their say in terms of like, well, this is the reason we went for this. But I also think it could provide some interesting information in terms of like actually perhaps bringing a pattern to some of those ones where it's like I'm looking at them from the outside and being like, I don't understand why this is that and that's the other thing, and maybe we can come to a good conclusion on it. But yeah, and then at the very end of it, looking at like, okay, is there any hope for the future? And I think something that I didn't have written down here that could be a good final concluding question when we get into episode 2, or like not episode 2, but like part 2 of this, is like looking at like, now that we've seen all of this in its totality, like how would you move forward in terms of like your purchasing habits in terms of these games? Because I'm sure despite this, there are still like particular games in this that you would want, but how do you, the question becomes like, how do you do this in the way that you think is the right sort of purchasing habit for it,
Yeah, and to kind of preface my at least pre-thoughts when it comes to going into this discussion, I don't like the whole idea of key cards because I feel like this is just something that's like an unnecessary addition to the video game ecosystem. And we've seen like things in the past that have now kind of unfortunately become slightly main staples, at least for a little while, when it comes to gaming. And I'm worried that like this is going to be something that like, oh, well, Nintendo's doing it, so we should start doing it. It's like, we don't want key cards. Like, at least I don't want key cards. I don't want to see physical media have to get locked out because it's just a digital download that you have to put onto another piece of hardware. Just give us the hardware. Like, I don't feel like it's, that difficult. This is just an unnecessary step for the sake of saying it's innovation. At least my take on it before this discussion.
Right. I think it's gonna be very interesting. Like, because funnily enough, you're previewing to one of the sections in the very, very last part of this, because it's going to be interesting too when we put it into the context of, well, what is the situation on other platforms? Because in some ways, obviously, this seems new, but in other ways, this also isn't really that new of a practice. And similarly, despite this, kind of like you said, this quote-unquote innovation, it's also, I would make the argument, depending on what you prioritize, you could make the case that physical games are still the most proper on the Switch 2. With the, like, depending on how you look at it, you could make the argument that that's the case for the PlayStation 5. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves with that. Let's just start from the beginning. Let's establish what this media in air quotes is. So
right, magnets. How do they
right.
work?
So as written, this is straight from the source on Nintendo of America's website, quote, "Game key cards are different from regular game cards because they don't contain the full game data. Instead, the game card is your key to downloading the full game to your system via the internet. After it's downloaded, you can play the game by inserting the game key card into your system and starting it up like a standard physical game card. End quote. Pretty like concise explanation, I would say, right? And the way I kind of look at them is like I see them as like another alternative to the previous options we saw on the original Switch, because you'd either have a proper cart. The game is mostly on the cartridge with a portion that needs to be downloaded. So, like, I know Doom 2016 did that. A lot of NBA 2K games did that, where it's like, yeah, most of it's on here, but you got to download a little bit. You'd also see some multi-game releases where it's like they split up the Mega Man Legacy collections, like Mega Man Legacy Collection with the 6 NES games. That was on the cartridge. Mega Man Legacy Collection 2 was a download code. Kind of similar thing was done with like the GTA trilogy too. If I recall, GTA 3 was on the cartridge, and then you had to download Vice City and San Andreas. And then the last option, of course, on the Switch one was it's just straight up code in a box, right? Or the game might just not, they might just be like, we're just going to offer it digitally, even though other systems have physical copies for one reason or another. So I see this as like, that's kind of how I look at this. Is like it's in alternatives that you still have publishers being like, well, we can have a physical option, but it's not necessarily one of those. It still has a cartridge. So, I mean, is that a fair characterization, you think, so far in terms of just describing this is what they are?
There is a very specific instance that comes to mind when I hear it. I can't remember what exactly it is, but I feel like it was... I think it was Street Fighter Cross Tekken. It was something Capcom did. But I remember there was a big issue because people were pissed off because it was like they released the game and the data miners found the DLC data was already on the disc, but you had to pay to unlock it. This is the vibe that I'm getting when it comes to key cards in a lot of cases. It feels like it's like, oh, we'll put the stuff on the thing for you, but you have to pay us to let you actually use it. And it's like, I know it's not quite a one-to-one, but this is kind of the feeling that I'm getting of it. And I don't know if I really like the idea of having to be like, if I buy something physical in my hand, I better have that physically there. Because this almost feels in a way like this is a gaming NFT. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
Like you own it, but you have to like let us give you permission by paying for it.
Well,
like,
so
which I understand is like like, yeah, I understand that sounds like, yeah, that's buying something stupid, but I think what I'm getting at is more of like when you have something that is supposed to be a quote unquote finished product and it's not all there. So
are you looking at this like in the long run, or like, I'm just curious because I find this simile. I think this simile is interesting, but I don't know that I agree with it. But I think there's something to it.
So let me try to elaborate my thought process of my probably ADHD ridden brain. So imagine, if you will, like if you were to go to like say a delicatessen or something, like you want to get a sandwich, right? And
sandwich,
yeah, just any sandwich, like, let's say it's like a Reuben or something like that, and you go, they have like a Reuben already pre-made for you, you go to the counter, you buy it, you take it home, and while you have all the things there, they for some reason like held off like the Thousand Island dressing or something. Like it's there, but you have to pay like an additional $2 to actually put it on the sandwich or something like that. This is the kind of thing that my brain is thinking it is when it comes to key cards as a whole. Because in my head, you are not giving us the game per se. Like, you are giving us access to the game. And like, it could be argued that, Steam kind of does something similar. It's like, Steam lets you have access on the store to download these games for you after you've paid them. But once you pay them, you have unlimited access for as long as the service is around. And that's counting even like games that have been delisted. Like I own both Poker Night Inventory 1 or Poker Night at the Inventory 1 and 2, and those have been delisted for a long time. But I can still download them because they are somewhere in there, and I can still play them. So, to me, having a key card as like the way to get access to the game is like an unnecessary gate that we have to get through. When in a simpler time, it was, hey, you had bought this game, here's a disc or a cartridge, you put it in some cases you may have to install it, and you can play the game. Or in some other cases, like more recently, you can digitally buy it, you get a code, or you can buy it straight off of the store, install it, and bam, you can play it whenever. I think this is just adding a layer to something that doesn't need another layer. This is a hat on a hat kind of thing.
Okay, so is your worry, because like the kind of the way I'm reading like what you're saying is like, because this is one of the things that I mentioned here in my like why are these problematic section too, is like it sounds like you're more worried about like the long term, like what if I want to play this game in 10 years, is it still going to be there kind of thing. Is that accurate, or like is there something I'm missing?
I don't think it's inherently like off of what I'm trying to get at. Like the long-term ramifications being that this is new, we don't have like a solid thought process on it. Like this isn't like something where it's like, oh, I bought a husk of a cartridge and then I could download the game into it and now I have it on that cartridge. This is something
It's not a flash card.
Yes. Or flash drive, yeah. It's not a flash card.
Well, no, that
2 plus 2 equals 4.
Well, that's a thing. Like there have been NES flash cartridges for years where it's like you download the game through a not necessarily entirely legal method, but it's kind of in a gray area, and you put it on an SD card, but it has like the shell of the cartridge you put it into. Anyway, I digress. So I find that interesting because like, so, I mean, basically the way these games work, from what I can tell, is it, like, if I were to get a game that were a key card, let's say I bought something, I don't know why I would do this, but like, let's say I bought Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S, even though I already have Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, but whatever, I just need that little extra tiny bit of content that's somehow worth $40, even though I already got the original game for $20. I put it in the console. It basically sends a signal from the console to the eShop to say, hey, this person bought this game, download it.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference it's saying is, in the future, basically just to verify that you still own the game, you put the cartridge, you put the key card into the system as if it were an actual cartridge, because all the console's checking is, hey, does this person own that game, right? So I guess that's why I'm like, I don't know that I think your concern is entirely one-to-one, but it's still like it's that's why I'm like kind of likening it more to the long-term stuff, because there's a question about like, well, how does this work if this ends up in some local yokel game shop in a couple years and this game has to get delisted for reasons X, Y, or Z? Is it still going to be like, when the next person who buys it, are they going to be able to download the game off the cartridge? Because they're entitled to the game by putting that key card into their console. But the person who bought it before, right, who bought it originally when it was new, that game's like, it's downloaded to their system. It's on their system. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and I think that's another thing that, like, kind of piggybacking off what you said, it's like, you know, when I buy stuff on my Switch, I have, like, mostly physical releases. I think I have, if I remember right, like 3 or 4 digital releases that I bought off the Nintendo store. And I
that had physical versions, or just, like, in general?
Yeah, they had physical versions. It's just,
okay,
I had access to that only, or if it was, like, on sale and it was, like for me, I own Hades. We were talking about this before we started recording. Like, I love Hades. I own 3 versions of that game. I own 1 physical, and I own 2 digital, because I have it on Switch, I have it on Steam, I have it on PS4. I wanted it physical because I just love physical media as a whole, but if I want access to play it, I can play it on Steam, I can play it on Switch, I can play it on PS4, whatever is tickling my fancy at that point. But the thing is that if I have a digital copy of it, like on the Nintendo Store, it's not attached to anything except my account. So basically, Nintendo has already a system in place that if I buy something off the eShop on my profile, it says, hey, this person already bought this. We can let them download it, even if I get a brand new Switch. So I feel like, if anything, the key card kind of caused a new problem in that case, because it's like, okay, well, now I have this key card that lets me have access to it. It's like, you already were supposed to have access to it if you bought it digitally. Like, in what universe would I need to be able to buy the game to basically have you lock it in front of me, and then I have to have something else to also make sure that I can play it? Like, kind of going back to the hat on the hat thing, it's like you're adding extra steps to make it more complicated than you need to. And another thing that I just kind of thought about it, and this is a very off-topic thought when it came to key cards, is if key cards can't be resold like physical games, that's going to create much more like physical waste as a whole. Like, we have all these, like, you know, game cartridges with these key cards and these cases. We're making more stuff to not sell something inside of it that has at least a physical value to it. So why are they going to need to keep it unless there is a very specific reason? And, like, I don't know the technology side of it when it comes to key cards and how that all entirely works, I will be frank. But in my head, it's like, if long-term down the road, people want to sell these games that they have on Switch 2, but they're only key cards, will that be doable? Because something tells me that, like, I know that they said that they're trying to make sure that that can still be done. I don't see how you're able to do it, though. That's the big thing.
Right. And that's absolutely fair, right? And you're touching on some of the concerns that I have on here. I'm trying to find when, like, because I want to see, like, something that's come out, you know, after these have been on the market. Just an example of, like, hey, someone has bought this used and they can keep playing the game, because that is part of the appeal, is that, or, you know, appeal, quote unquote, right, is that it's supposed to be a physical game in that you can resell it, but it's digital in that it's not actually on the cartridge. Basically, the cartridge itself is like the thing that's just telling you, that's telling the console, this person owns a license to play this game, so let them play the game.
But this is the problem that I was just addressing. It's like, if the digital download on Switch 1 lets me see that it's on my profile, I don't need another thing to basically confirm that I have bought it. The profile...
You're saying it's annoying that you have to take the extra step. If it's a digital game, I should just download it straight from the eShop. Like, yes. Why bother going to the store and get it? And I absolutely agree with that too. I think that's
such a completely unnecessary like step. Like, that's what's pissing me off about it all.
Yes, I agree. I think it's irrational. Like, to if you want to do the most efficient thing, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm looking at the proposition of, like, do I want to go to the store and pay them money to get this game? But it's the same as if I downloaded it off the eShop, with the only difference being the next time I want to play it, I have to put it in the system, even though the game isn't on there. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and even if, like, let's say that, like, if the key card worked the way that it's like, oh, you download it digitally, but it's on the cartridge now. Why didn't you just put it on the cartridge before it was sent out? Like, why do I have to do extra steps to actively, I think this is just something that's, as a whole, kind of pissing me off. And maybe this is just me getting too old for my britches at this point. But, like, if a consumer has to do stuff for the product to be usable within certain elements, I don't know if
it's not part of the intended fun of the product or use of the product.
Yeah, like, I don't think I need that product at the end of the day. It's one thing if it's like, oh, I got to build this furniture. That might have some assembly required, and let's be honest. Have you ever tried to like move a dresser like from point A to point B that is already built? It's a bitch. But that is understandable because it's like it's easier to ship, and yeah, you're gonna have to put in some of the work for that. But you're gonna be able to at least have the finished product where you want it.
Right.
Versus like, if you have, say, I'm trying to think of a real non-game example just to kind of illustrate the point.
I've got one. Before you play with the Lego, you have to build it.
Yeah.
That's part of the process,
Right. It's like you give me a Lego set that is already pre-built and then tell me I have to pay $80 or whatever it is for that set that is already built. Why do I need to buy it? The part of the fun is I have to build it. Like, and in this case with the gaming stuff, it's like, I feel like it's not a one-to-one in that aspect, but it's like the general like feeling of that is there.
Well, see, this is why I'm really trying to clarify, because the way you're explaining it makes it sound like to me like you're thinking, I have to go to the store to spend money on this, and then when I bring it home, I don't own it. I still have to spend money. Like, you're making it sound like you have to spend money again to get it from the digital store.
No, I'm not saying it has to spend money again. That's DLC at that point. But what I'm saying is it's like, if I am going to buy a game, and it's the two options that we currently have is it's a physical on cartridge or on disc release, or a digital download that can be downloaded straight to the system. We're adding an unnecessary third option because we want some like semblance of security, I think is the best way to phrase it, where it's saying like, oh, we don't want people to pirate our games. Okay, then don't be sitting there and trying to like find unnecessary ways. It's like, make your games affordable then so people can actually buy them. There's still going to be pirates, I'm sure, but like, if you really are worried about people pirating your games that you haven't re-released how many times like before, I mean, look at like Grand Theft Auto and Skyrim. These things are getting released like every waking like week with a new version of them basically. But like in Nintendo's case at least, it's like you guys haven't re-released some of your classic games in I don't know how long. And even when you do, it's like there's always a catch, it feels like. It's like, look at the Switch right now. It's like you had Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which is like everyone got excited about that initially, but it's like no one's going to pay $90 now for, 3 Mario games if they can pirate them a lot easier. And I want to make sure that I preface this. I am not pro-piracy by any stretch of the imagination. I am just telling it as I see it. If you
it's just a reality that like it's gonna be there. It's like to use a comparison in the area that I studied in college. It's like if you're going to war against an ideology as opposed to a war against like a government, you're never gonna like. By the fact that you're killing people who believe in something, you're just gonna create more people who believe in that, right? By trying to tamp down on piracy, ironically, you're making more people who are going to be like, well, what the heck? Like, if you're doing this X, Y, or Z, like, and you're tamping down on people's ability to, like, get a more affordable version because you're not re-releasing it in an affordable way, to your point, you're not making people sympathetic to your point. It's something that I think we talked about this in... I can't remember if we talked about this in the historical negationism episode, but I swear we've talked about this idea before where it's just like, you need to, the company themselves, if they want to do good business, it's like you need to make people be like sympathetic to your point, to the reason that you're going for this. Whereas like, it's very punitive, and that specifically does not work. Like you're just making bad press for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge, huge thing. It's like, Nintendo has kind of always been in this weird area where it's like they are really family friendly. Like they have great games. I've grown up with them. But then you look at some of the other decisions that they do, and it's really hard to like root for that kind of company. Like,
Nintendo's in general, it's hard to root for any big business.
That too. But like I'm using in Nintendo's case, it's like it is much harder for people to stream games if they want to. Like it's not the simplest. Like you can do it. But it's so much harder to stream it on a PC if you want to play something on your Switch, for example, on like Twitch or YouTube or whatever. And it's hard to kind of like really get behind them when other companies are like, oh, we want to be more streamer friendly. Or you become a PC streamer, and how many games are just on PC, and it makes it that much easier. It's like, and Nintendo being I won't say that they're anti-PC, but they're not going to be putting their stuff on PCs anytime soon. If we did, that would be the topic we'd be talking about, because that would be probably the biggest news I think that we had seen in a long time consumer-wise for video games.
I mean, that would be a seismic shift.
That would be huge.
I would argue.
But the problem is that Nintendo doesn't make things easy when it comes to certain things that people want to do with it. Mm-hmm. And like, they're very anti-mod in a lot of cases, which I can understand to a fault. Like, I'm not a person who mods games. I don't care.
That's also true more broadly, I will say, when it comes to like Japanese game developers.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting. Like they're not as into mods because they're like you're changing the intent of the people who made the game originally. So it's not just unique to them, but you're right. Obviously being folks who make hardware and make like have this giant presence, they certainly play a much bigger role than like if you saw that for someone at Capcom saying that, because it's like they just don't have as big of a presence.
Right, and it's like even with like some of the stuff that we talked about when the Switch 2 got announced and we were kind of discussing some of the features, it's like there are already things that kind of exist for what, like when they were talking about like the whole video game chat thing that they were doing, that was effectively Nintendo flavored Discord. Like, you have Discord. Just talk to the company.
Right. It's like, that's fine, but just it comes to the point when it's like, why aren't you just integrating Discord?
Yeah, it's like you want to be so different that you're really not. Like, I hate putting this as the comparison, but like this is the best way that I can put it. Nintendo is the Apple of video game companies, where they think
I've thought about that many times.
Like, they think that they are so far innovative to the point of they're just like, oh, we came up with this idea. Meanwhile, some company like 15 years earlier was already doing it and arguably better, but Nintendo's trying to steal the credit in that case. And look,
right.
I love a lot of Nintendo games. I am a very big fan of the Switch. I'm a very big fan of all the all the Nintendo systems that I had growing up. I want Nintendo to be a successful company because I want to keep playing a lot of the stuff that they put out because they do good work gaming-wise. But I think if we're going to be honest, we need to have Nintendo really stop trying to like choke the horse out with the reins on this one and just let the horse go. Like, let them take you where it's going to. I don't think it's inherently bad if you try to incorporate some of the stuff that already exists into a Nintendo system. You don't have to have it be the Nintendo flavored version of it. Like, if you want to have a Discord style of service on the Switch, put Discord on. It's not like they're not known. It's not like people don't know who they are. And you're going to be comparatively like looking at them as like, oh, well, this is what Discord does versus what this does. And kind of going back with this whole, I know we're very off topic on this, but like I needed to make sure I said that because it's like, it bothers me as someone who has been a longtime Nintendo fan watching this roller coaster of great idea to really dumb idea, and that like it's the world's worst roller coaster to be on as a fan of Nintendo, where I'm just watching like this is just like
the two counterpoints I will say on the game chat thing in terms of like one that I think is like a little more neutral and one thing that I actually do think is pretty valuable is, on the one hand, it's exclusive to that system. It works more or less the same as Discord, so it's like I don't know that there's really that big of an impact in terms of like it has to be another thing. That's my more neutral one. I do think the one advantage that it has that I like a lot is that there's the online game share that's integrated through it. So like being able to play, just for example, one of my favorite 2020 games, Clubhouse Games, being able to just share that out to people online that are on my friends list, I think is cool, because it's like it makes it a lot easier to play a game with someone who doesn't own the game because I own it, but because we both use this, like it's just they have it basically. But I think that could be a big advantage if it were applied to even more games. With it being limited to what it is right now, it's just kind of like it's a minor benefit compared to like what you'd get if you could just integrate all the people you already have on a service like Discord in the system.
But anyway, back to keycards.
Right. So back on topic. This is a big part of why I knew this would be a 2-part episode, is because we'd get off track on stuff, but it's still like mildly relevant. To me, I think I would feel better about these if they were only used as an alternative to a code in a box, right? No one wants to go to the store and buy a piece of plastic that includes a sheet of paper inside with letters and numbers on it, when they could just download it from home and not make some waste. In practice, it's I think the key cards would be the same thing, but it's like it would be kind of neat. That's like, oh well, at least I have this little trinket there. But there's still like, it's not as fun. But yeah, as far as I can tell, in this sea of problems, it does seem to be the case that like you can trade these into game shops as used copies, and then when a new person buys it, it should still work for them. That's one of the things, like I said, that like I'm looking, because you're making me think about this again, like, oh, well,
sorry, I made you think.
Have we? No, I know. I'm trying to see like, well, where, I'm seeing like people talking about like you can do that, but I just want to see something that's more recent where someone says, yeah, I went to GameStop and I bought whatever and it works fine for me. Because it looks like that's, I guess, one of the only differences to your point, like you said. If you download it straight from the eShop, it's tied to your account. If you download using the keycard, the way that it's like tied to you is you put the cartridge in the system. But that also means it's the case that, like, let's say I bought whatever and then I lent it to you. You can use it because even though we'll both have downloads of that game to our system, the verification that like you own this is a legitimate license on this cartridge. So I don't know. It's complicated. So let's go into why these are problematic then. I mean, first and foremost, we want physical releases, right? Which is just like we want it, right? Not every video game ever made needs to be on disc or be on cartridge, but like, if you're a AAA publisher, I don't think it's asking too much to have your major releases actually be on the media. And you subpoint to that, if your physical release is a download anyway, I may as well just download it from the digital storefront. Like, why go through the effort of getting up, drive to the store, go get it? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right, and I think that's a thing that, like, people gotta actively realize that it's like you're creating an unnecessary problem, like I said earlier. Like, I don't know how to word it better than that. It's just...
You're making hassle where hassle doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it's like you already had a good system. It's like you're doing innovation for just the sake of saying you're innovating, not actually making something more beneficial in the long run. My
one worry with it, though, in terms of like, you get to the point where you're saying, well, I may as well just download it, is like, what if that's kind of the backdoor incentive to be like, well, we want to push to digital only for all games. So it's like, well, what better way to do that than to actively already incentivize people to be like, well, just go download it. I know that probably sounds mildly conspiratorial, but at the same time, I think it's a legitimate concern, right? I don't think it's actually too crazy of a thought. My next concern, thank God, the Switch 2 does not have 32 gigabytes of storage. It has 256. But that's going to fill up real quick when there are so few proper physical games, on top of publishers not really compressing their games much at all. Because just like, for example, you could have a game that's like 25 gigabytes, which in 2025 for like a major release...
was big.
It's actually that's a pretty small game, actually. There are games that are still teeny tiny that come out. Like, I used the example of Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. That's like 4 gigabytes. but that's also a budget release. Whereas you compare that to something that's like a big boy release, I mean, there's a lot of those that can get up to like 100 some gigabytes. But I mean, 25 gigabyte game alone, that's like basically 10% of the console's storage, right? So like, why am I buying your physical game to take up the same amount of space it would take to download it? That doesn't make sense. On top of like that same storage there also has to be used for updates for the console, updates for games. If you download any DLC, it just to me that's one of the more egregious things. Is it's like if I just had some other like benefit that came with it, if it like not taking up storage, it'd be fine, you know? Here's something that might be a little bit more obscure for some if they haven't really thought this through, but I think it's important. This is really gonna screw over players that like live somewhere really rural, or if they live in like a developing country where the internet might not be up to snuff. Like there are parts of the US still that have satellite internet. Do you remember what using satellite internet was like if you ever used that?
No, because when I was growing up, we didn't have internet. We had AOL, and then we got rid of it, and we never got internet at the house again.
Okay, so this is even more like perfect for you. Okay, if you bought that game and you have no internet connection at your home, you have no game. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's part of the idea of like having it, like part of the benefit for those people of having it be on physical is it's there. You don't have to download anything. Or if you have really slow internet, it would take you 24 hours to download something, you don't have to go through that whole mess because you have the game on the media. So I think that's like, to me, one of the most frustrating things about this is just like, why are we screwing over these people needlessly that still have a legitimate desire to own these games, right? And especially because like in the past, there's also been work done to like help kind of integrate those people too. Like there are some games that didn't get physical releases here that got like, if you were to go on Play Asia, for example, you can find what they just call like an Asia version of Ghost Trick or the Phoenix Wright trilogy, but the boxes are in English. Mm-hmm. But that's because those are the versions that are offered for Thailand and Singapore and Indonesia. Like, and like, I don't want to, do not take this as any comment on like countries themselves, like in any bigger picture here, but like, you know, if the internet infrastructure is not entirely up to snuff there compared to somewhere like the US or Japan or, you know, random European country, that's why they have their own version of a physical copy of that game, because it's a lot easier to go to the store and buy it and own it on the cartridge because you don't have to download anything, which makes these key cards practically worthless for those areas of the world. And, you know, again, like the infrastructure might be better here now many years later in some of those places, but there's still other places in the world that, you know, whether it's like, you know, war-ravaged Ukraine, where internet, I'm sure, is a huge luxury. Not that you're even thinking about video game playing there, but just like, I just want to toss out a different example, right? To you, it's just a hunk of plastic if you have to download it, and you either, in your case, when you wouldn't have had internet some 20-ish years ago, like, you straight up can't download it, or it's such a hassle to download it that's like, it may as well just be a hunk of plastic, right? Like, what's the point? And then in the long term, let's look at preservation. We don't know, is there a plan in place to make sure these games are going to keep working after the eventual closure of the eShop infrastructure for the Switch 2? Right? Mm. Once that infrastructure closes, these are as good as worthless, right? A disc of Street Fighter 6 on the PS5, until that disc succumbs to disc rot, it's going to keep working in that console as long as as long as the hardware keeps working too. Whereas the key card stops working, like it continues to work in that If you still have it and you already downloaded the game, you can use it. But if it's out in the market and no one owns it, that is as good as worthless. And I think that's a big problem in the long term because not every copy of the game is going to be owned by someone. Like, what's a local game store supposed to do when they get this close to the server going down? Are they going to have to be like, flash sale, it's the last day you can download these, and so we got to get rid of them because otherwise people are going to be screwed, right? Like,
I just love the idea of like a digital eShop that's closed and it's like everything must go. It's like you are a digital store. You have multiple copies.
You have infinite copies, in fact.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense at that point, right? The last piece that I wanted to touch on in terms of my own concerns, and I think you touched on this a little bit too, e-waste.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be literal, all this technology that I have sitting around me is e-waste because it all just stops working. But, I mean, you can still use original Atari cartridges from pretty close to 50 years ago, and it'll still work in your Atari 2600. If it is in fact the case that this infrastructure goes down in like 15-ish years, because that seems to be about the time frame that Nintendo's usually used, I mean, that means come 2040, you're not going to be able to download these games again. There is the caveat, maybe this infrastructure will last longer because it seems like Switch is what Nintendo's brand is going to be from now on in terms of systems. But I don't know that that's really a chance that we should want to take. If you have the option of, well, I could make this plastic and, but still have to download this game, or I could just download it and not make the plastic, which option are you going to take? Right, granted, exactly. I guess that all assumes you care about the environment too. Okay, well, that covers like that entire first section. We really went like really long and then covered like all the rest of it really quickly. Are there any concerns here still that I haven't brought up that like you wanted to touch on, or any of those that you wanted to expand upon?
I think the biggest thing that like I'm not going to say that I am completely against the idea of key cards. I don't want to make it sound like that. But I do think that there's more working against it than there is for it. And like kind of I always said it multiple times already, this is creating a problem that didn't need to exist. Like, you already do physical and you already do digital. And now we have effectively a hybrid version of that is only going to make it more complicated than the other two options that are vastly better. And I think the big one that I like have the biggest issue with all this is like if these eShops end up eventually going down, like, which they will. They absolutely will at some point. Unless, like, of course, like, when it comes to at least the Switch, their eShop with, like, the Switch 1 and the Switch 2, and then whatever comes on after that, I assume Switch 3 maybe, or Switch 2 Electric Boogaloo, I don't know. As long as, like, those shops are still valid and they're still able to do that, okay, whatever. I don't think that's as big of an issue then. But if it's kind of like how it was with the Wii U and the 3DS shop, where, like, it did go down, and there's really no way to get it back, I think that's the bigger problem. Because it's going to cause problems with video game preservation in some capacity. And then on top of it, kind of going back to the e-waste topic, we may not even see these be useful for resale, potentially. Something could very well go wrong with it. I've seen some stores are at least selling them, like, kind of up by us, which is like, okay, so I can be proven wrong on that. But it still goes to ask at the same time, like, if you were to buy something that's a key card, what's stopping you from just buying it digitally instead? You save how much on the plastic? You don't have, millions of units of basically an empty husk of a cartridge inside of a case just that you can put on your shelves. And I like physical media, but this isn't physical media. This is just physical. There's no media in it until we give it media.
that's why I feel like this is causing problems and making problems that didn't need to exist in the first place. If you really want to like give us physical games, great, but at least just make them physical from the get-go. It's one thing if you need to do DLC and it's not ready for the like initial game release, sure, understandable. But then at the same time, don't be sitting there saying it's like, oh, I need this physical thing to plug into my Switch to digitally download something. It's like you are taking literally two things and putting them together you don't need. I don't know. I just don't feel like this is a necessary idea, is my final thoughts on it. I don't see this being beneficial. I hope whatever the next system after this, Nintendo realizes that, hey, we didn't need to actually do this and this was kind of a waste of time and money, and just give us physical, give us digital. You can put some extra securities in there if you have to with like the digital front. Physical, I really don't know what you can really do to make it more secure if you're really concerned about that. I don't really think you need to, if I'm being honest. But I think that at the end of the day, it's like, just stop innovating for things that don't actually have a problem.
I see where you're going with this, but my issue there is I think what's inevitably going to happen with the next PlayStation, the next Xbox, assuming there even is one, and the next Nintendo system is, I mean, I know people have said this for years, but like this time I really, honest to God, think we are seeing the last bastion of physical media. Because we've already got the Series S is digital only. There's digital only versions of the Series X. And there's a digital only version of the PS5. Not to mention the PS5 Pro, you have to go out of your way to purchase a disc drive for. So, whereas the Switch 2 is the only system that has the media reader is included in every console. Period, point blank, right? But the fact that the trend has already started and that we've seen it become easier through these key cards to be like a bridge to all digital games suggests to me that, you know, in the future, it's all going to be digital only, right?
Yeah.
And kind of looking ahead to what we're talking about next time, though, I think it's interesting in terms of some of the justifications that some developers have used for this is why we went with the key card, the few that have like talked about it. But there's also some who are not as really good in their justification for it. And I think that's to the extent where you might see us sort of change opinion. But I guess the temperature reading I want to get right now before we go into that for next time is, because this is the question I would want to end on next time too, but I think this could be an interesting like gauge here in the middle.
Magnets, how do they work?
Right.
Sorry, I'll stop making that joke.
if you were to go out and you wanted to purchase one of these games, would you be more firmly right now, nope, I'm not going to buy this game at all. I'm going to buy this game, but on another platform. I'm only going to download the game, or even though it's a keycard release, I would go for the keycard. Like, just pretend there's some game that you definitely know you would want, but those are like your options there.
And I think in the next episode, I think what I kind of want to touch about is like, and I don't think we really talked about it in this one, but like, why Nintendo with their like first party games are doing like how they used to do it, where it's all physically on there, versus like why are these like more second and third party giving the key card treatment more in that case. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's an interesting way to look at it too, because it's like, what makes it like your decision? Like, yes, it's your system and whatnot and your console, but why is it only Nintendo gets it, then all these other companies.
Well, that's not entirely true, but you're right. Right, they are the main ones that get it. But to your point that you're going here, I think there is also something to be said for like, yeah, if you're the people who make the platform, you better be doing physical releases for it. But I guess like right now on those four options, what would you most lean toward if you were like, would you just straight up avoid the game entirely on any system? Would you download it, go with the key card, or like, purchase it somewhere else, you think?
I think if I had to pick, at least right now, before we get into the next episode's discussion, I would make the argument that I would probably just go digital, honestly. Like, I hate saying that, but it's like, if you're gonna basically make physical media have like an extra hurdle before it's like technically physical, I might as well just get it digital and avoid the hurdle altogether. Like, I know it's a stupid thing to get like upset about and whatnot, but like, if I'm being completely honest, it's like, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. It's like, I don't need to have an extra step to enjoy games that I want to play now. Like, we as consumers are already getting kind of blasted by a lot of things that the gaming industry is doing that like even 15, 20 years ago weren't even concerns. And then they became concerns, like long download times to get a game like installed on it system. Sure, games are getting bigger. I understand that, but that wasn't the case for a lot of us. Like, best that we had to do sometimes was like we just had to make a save file on a memory card. And now, we're in an age of, and I'm not saying like it's still the case nowadays, but it's like we live through an age of loot boxes in every single game because they wanted a microtransaction, everything. We're currently living through a battle pass stage where like every game that exists feels like it has to have some semblance of a battle pass as if it's live service, even though realistically it really doesn't. It's just like, it's great that you're giving us stuff, but it's like, that's the only reason you're incentivizing us to play a game every waking moment that we can. Like, I play single games now because I'm tired of battle passes, and it lets me go and actually enjoy the games that I have in my library right now. Like, I'm currently going through right now the Yakuza series and replaying Hades. I don't need a battle pass for that. I have completion lists, sure, but I can pick and choose when I'm done with those. Like, I don't have...
And more importantly, they're not timed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, some things are timed, but, like, that's just... they're timed missions, whatever.
I meant, like, timed in terms of, like, you don't have to do it between this date and this date.
Like, and that's kind of why I like... We're kind of getting a little off subject, but, like, this is why I like a Helldivers 2 or a Marvel Rivals, where it's, like, the Battle Pass is still accessible even after the initial, like, it's gone. But, like, it's not gone. It's just there, and you can do it at your own leisure. Like, for me, like, I haven't played Helldivers 2 in I don't know how long, but I know that if I go pick it up tomorrow, I don't feel like I gotta get forced to buy, a battle pass for $10 per thing just to try to get all these things unlocked right off the get-go. It's, hey, I'm gonna be able to play this game at my leisure and earn them how I feel like I'm going to earn them. And honestly, one of these days, I might actually have to dust off Helldivers. I miss that game very much. But, I don't know. I think it's just we're getting into an unnecessary trend that other companies are going to start doing it. I mean, I completely forgot I wanted to bring this up earlier, but was like, I started seeing like Targets are taking Xbox stuff just flat out of their stores now.
That's been an interesting topic because it's been claimed, but there have also been, like, basically there's reports that suggest it's true. There's also reports that suggest that it's not true. So, like, I'm not really sure one way or another which way it's going, but
I mean, either way, it's still
the fact that it's a thought,
yeah,
that like people are seeing that it's like it seems like it's happening is a concern.
And even like I remember like when some stores were like getting to that point where like they were going to starting to carry physical media on the store shelves as much as they used to. You could probably still order it through the website and whatnot, but it's like
for some places, it's like they don't have, an exclusive video game store like GameStop, a Best Buy, and even Best Buy with their whole physical media change like a year or two ago. Like, I hate seeing physical media is disappearing because I'm almost willing to bet money that like in 5 years we may, kind of like what you were saying, like physical media could just disappear as a whole. And then something tells me like in 10, 15 years from today, after they've already done that, they're going to be like, oh crap, we probably shouldn't have done that. And they start bringing it again. It's kind of the vinyl argument in a way, where suddenly all these stores started picking up vinyl because that was what everybody was wanting to get into, because they wanted vinyl. Vinyl is probably right now more popular than CDs, and that is really saying a lot, because one is vastly like older than the other. But like, I think nostalgia is a hell of a drug when it comes to what people want, because like we see it in gaming trends, we see it in television reboots, and we see it in even consumer practices. People want what they know or what they used to know, and it gives them this like feeling of like, hey, I really liked this and I want to see it brought back. But for some reason, companies don't want to keep still sticking to the status quo. My favorite argument when it comes to that is like, my grandparents, when they were living in their old house, had this big green fridge in their basement, and it was there since like the 60s or something like that, right? Not once did they have to repair that fridge. They moved out like in the 2010s, I think it was. For 50 years, that thing was still chugging along. And it, if I'm being completely honest, probably still is. Because they did not move that fridge, and that probably is still chugging for that family who moved into their house after they left. Now, it's like, if I want a fridge, I'm like, I'm lucky if I want to get 5 years out of it or something like that. Because I think a lot of these people, like in the companies, have realized we can't make money by selling a quality product anymore. We have to sell them a product that's going to fail because we need them to buy another one. And I think that's, the problem. It's like, I would almost argue like gaming is kind of getting into that mentality now, where it's like maybe even like discs that we do have physically don't necessarily stay in the best condition because they may get scraped up and scratched and it's harder to play them. And it almost is trying to force us into a digital age, whether we want to or not. But I have very firm belief that if they actively wanted to, they would be able to shell the money out to make quality discs that would not scratch, or at least would be much more resilient. And then when we're done with them, we can sell that game to somebody else who will get the same amount of enjoyment that we did. And it kind of gives it a cycle. I don't know if I'm making sense at this point, if I'm being honest, but like, I don't know. The older I get, the more I hate how certain things have become. And I definitely start to understand like why some older generations are the way they are.
You get resentful. Man, this episode took a really dark turn all of a sudden. I mean, yeah, I get where you're coming from with that though too. It just seems like it's just such a sad like state of affairs, right? I really hear all the points that you're making on this. And again, sort of previewing to next time, my one worry with our capability with some of these things, like making a similar trend, I guess is the way that I'll use it, like how you're comparing things to vinyl, is I think there are technological limitations we may have that could make that very, very difficult to do. Despite the fact that there could be demand for it, I think it's tough to say if, like let's say the PlayStation 6 and the Xbox Series J, or whatever it ends up being, they go all digital for that, But then by the time they reach PlayStation 7, if they do that, if they're like, oh, well, now we see there's this trend that people want physical media back, but is that going to be possible because of the way that technology is limited? They haven't been doing innovation in the interim in terms of like how to do this because physical media hasn't been a thing for video games. So like the tech isn't there, right? You know, is that going to be the hurdle to cross? But it's definitely something worth thinking about. And I mean, I'd hope that you're right, but I guess to answer my own question though right now, the options that I gave myself, I am truly conflicted because I think in the long term it just makes sense to go with download only, because why the heck would I buy something, like you said, that's fake digital if I don't have to? But there's also, based on some of the things that have been talked about, that it's like, oh, maybe it makes some sense, but that's going to be more relevant when we get into the next episode. But I think that's covered pretty much what we need to today. So unless you have any other remaining final thoughts you want to share, I think I'm ready for us to sign out.
The more thoughts I have, the longer this episode's getting, so I say we call it here, and then maybe we can save those thoughts after we get the next one rolling.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, kind of on that same boat. Here's hoping, even though we have 23 pages to go, that somehow the next episode ends up being a similar or maybe slightly longer length. Who knows? We might end up this. I really don't want this to be a 3-parter.
Oh, I ain't gonna.
But I also think there's
complain about a 3-parter. This is a big topic.
I think there's a really good chance this ends up being a 3-parter. Woo! And I wrote this later in the notes in that section, but like, just for the record, I don't want to be doing any more research-intensive episodes like this, because that's part of, I think, what has prevented me from editing some of these longer episodes, is like I'm also working on these long notes. So I'm not against doing any research-intensive episodes in general, but I just don't want to be the one writing one for a while, because this took weeks to write in between editing episodes.
Got it. So if we end up not making a 3-parter for episode, because what would that be, 49 then?
Yes.
So if we don't get the 3-parter, that means I'm in charge of episode 49, and I'm going to also make sure that I'm in charge of episode 50, just to give your brain a break.
Well, 50 is kind of a weird one if we really go with the thing that we've talked about doing. But I mean, I think that one would be less intense in general.
I mean, I get that. But at the same time, it'll be more... I think 50 is going to be like... It'll be a nice reflection piece of how far we've come. Because I started at, what, 30?
Actually, I think it was 29.
Maybe it would not be bad if we have like a reflection episode of like, all right, we brought Boom in like last year. What do we think?
No, you're right. It was 30.
I was going to say, I'm like... We're 20 episodes in. Has Brandon regretted this decision?
No, that's not going to be the topic of the episode.
Yeah. But no, I think there's going to be some good discussion on the next episode once we have more like outside opinions with some of the stuff. Because like at the end of the day, we're two guys in, you know, a podcast, you know, we're old men yelling at clouds in a way, but I think it's just one of these things that it's like, this is kind of a relevant thing now. Like when we were talking about it a long time ago, like months ago, it was like still trying to be figured out. And now that the dust is kind of settled, it's like, where are we at now?
Indeed.
All right.
Verily. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody who's been here for the last hour and 13 minutes with us. If you've enjoyed the episode, please like it. Please visit us at speakpipe.com/endless conversation loop. I am just waiting for that day when we get a voice message. I know it'll happen just through the laws of like how things work, but I want that. Otherwise, if you want to share a written comment, we love reading those too, just knowing that people are interacting with the subject matter that we've talked about on an episode. Like the episode, subscribe wherever you are, on whatever platform that is, and we will talk to you when we get together again next to record Part 2, Episode 49. I guess it'll probably just be the Keycard Conundrum Part 2. And with that, I am Brandon, and I am signing out.
All right, I guess I'll leave too then. Okay, bye.
Bye!